Troubleshooting 101. In this video I'm going to show you some tips and tricks on troubleshooting your standalone or floating license issues. So we'll start off with the standalone license. So if your software is not running and you get the configuration wizard when you're installing a NodeLock license, or after you have attempted to install the license, there's a few things I would check. Check for Windows firewall being on. Maybe you selected the wrong Ethernet address when you registered the product. You might have too many files in the FlexLM directory, or you could have some environment variable set. We'll check on that, and you could have extensions on. So I'm going to show you how to check some of these. Let's go ahead and do that. The first place I will go look for any type of problem would be in the FlexLM folder, which is your install directory for the license. So that's under C, FlexLM. So the first thing I see here, I have too many files in here, so I want to clean this up. So I would create a folder called old and just throw in there anything that you don't need. Now I know this is the file that I want, but as you can see it just says AW. To change that, so I want to see the extension on it, you go to Tools, Folder Options, View, and I uncheck Hide Extensions for Known File Types. Click on Apply, and there I see aw.dat. What can happen sometimes is that you have a .txt extension and you don't know it, and the license won't work like that. So next I would open the file just to make sure that it's all formatted correctly. If you have this, for example, all the way here, the license won't start, so you just want to make sure it's got like a space in between things, and this looks good. I'll go back and save the file. I'm going to close this. Next, what I would do is make sure. So this is the most common, is if it does not start, I actually would make sure that this host ID matches your Ethernet address that's on your computer. So I'm going to keep this open, and I'll go to Start, Programs, Autodesk, Common Utilities, FlexLM License Utilities. You go under System Settings, and here it says Ethernet address. So mine ends with a 9F, and I'm gonna look if I have that one, and I do. So I'll make sure it's the same: 001 C23 1B689F, and it does seem to match. So if it didn't match, then you could have a problem with the license. And lastly, you would want to make sure that your Windows firewall is off. To check that, you right click on my computer, you go to Manage, Expand Service and Application, click on Service, scroll down all the way to the bottom, and I look for Windows Firewall, which is right here. As you can see, it started. Right click on that and you click on Stop, and it is stopped. This is it for some common issues you might encounter for NodeLock. I'm gonna move on, and we're gonna cover the floating license issues. Troubleshooting your floating license could be a little bit more trickier than NodeLock license. The two major categories are your server does not start, or your client cannot connect to the server. These are some of the issues that you can encounter within the different categories. So if your server not starting, what could be happening is license file not formatted correctly. You could get a WinSock connection refuse error when you're doing a perform status inquiry. LMGRD does not start. That's one of the errors that you can get. You could also have some environment variables set for other package, and I'm going to show you how to check that or disable it. On the client to server, you could have a firewall on. We can also try to use the IP address instead of the Ethernet. I'll show you where to change that. Or you could be pointing to an old server, and I'll show you how to check that. So let's go ahead and uh, check some of these. The first place I would start, just like I did with NodeLock, is your license file. That's the first thing to check. So you go to C, FlexLM, and check the basics. See here I have aw.dat file. This is my NodeLock license, which is okay to have. It is separate from my floating, but just for testing purposes I want to get rid of that. The second thing is open the file, make sure there's nothing here that's out of place. This looks okay. This line here I will use later for testing purposes. Just make sure that your host name is correct. To check that, you go to LM Tools and System Settings, and just make sure that it matches. I'm going to close this off. Another error you can get when you run your perform status inquiry, in here you could get an error that says WinSock connection refused. Most of the time that happens is because when you go to config services, your path to log file is not set. So what you would do is you stop the server, go to the config services, browse to the log file, and make sure you hit save services again, and then you start your server again. Another important thing is this right here. Make sure that you have this checked on. Again, you could have some environment variables for another software. By checking this, it would override everything else. Some other problems you may encounter is the client server setup. So on a client side, again, you want to go to the C FlexLM, and you want to check the client file here. You want to make sure that all this is correct. Now, if it has trouble connecting to the server, again, check for the Windows firewall like we did on the NodeLock license, but check on both client and server. Make sure they're both off. Another thing I would try is to change the IP address. So again, you would have to update the server license file as well. So what I would do is on the server and the client, I would comment out the line using the host ID. Oops. And I would save the file, and I would do the same thing on the server side. I have my old server license here, so this is server license, and I would comment this one out and get rid of the comment. Save. Now on the server, what you would need to do is stop the server, restart, reread the license file, make sure the server is running, and then go to your client and just verify that everything is okay there as well. Lastly, what could happen is you've maybe changed server or server name on that machine for whatever reason. You should check in the registry. So I'm going to show you to do that. Go to start run. I'm going to type in regedit, and you would go to HKey local machine. You expand the software. You look for FlexLM right here. Now you expand that, and this right here is the service that we set up, which was called Alias. Now, it can happen that on that server something changes, or the name of the server or something else. So in order to start everything from scratch, I would delete this right here called license, or you can actually delete the whole service, and then you would start all over again. So just right click on there and hit on delete, and that would delete the service that's located in here, this service right here. That will basically enable you to kind of start over from scratch. Well, that is it for Troubleshooting 101. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you do have any issues, just contact the support center, and they'll be able to help you. Thank you.